It's time once again for the BitMart BrainTrust. Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Ryan, and well, it has certainly been a week in the industry, and we are going to break down what might be one of the biggest pieces of news to completely change the fortunes of the market and change the fortunes of one of the biggest holders in the space of FTX. Breaking it all down for us is Kelechi Ibe from BitMart, and of course, the host of the Daily Crypto Watch and the Crypto Conversations, Nathan Simone. Gentlemen, when it comes to this, when did you first hear about it, Nathan? And when we were going through, before we went on the air, there's been a TikTok over the last 72 hours, not the app, but a breakdown, a minute-by-minute breakdown of what's been going on across the market. This could be the Enron moment for the crypto and Web3 space.
It's a lot, Matt. I don't even want to look at what's going on TikTok because, you cannot explain this in 60 seconds. This is a very complex topic that I don't think really anybody saw coming. Of course, what I'm referring to is the exchange FTX and its associated leader, Sam Bankman-Fried, are pretty much no more. This has all happened over the period of like 7 days. I think 8 days. It is nuts to say the least. I think this is probably one of the most significant events in crypto history that goes up there with the Mt. Gox sort of stuff, the collapse of Terra. It's freaking huge. I know a decent amount about it. I'm still learning about it. This is an evolving story with so many topics to it. And so it touches so many areas of the industry and otherwise that I wanted to definitely take this BrainTrust to talk about all those different ones. And Kelechi, I know that you've been learning about it as well. It's a lot to wrap your head around, isn't it?
It is. I mean, such a big player in the space, just like disappearing overnight like that kind of, freaks everybody out. Obviously, working in an exchange as well, that's top, kind of top news. And that's kind of how I first heard about it. It was just shared internally, what's going on. And, obviously the story just kept developing and developing. And all of a sudden, boom, we heard that, CZ was trying to acquire them and this, that, and the other. They backed out. It's just a very, very, I want to say interesting, but at the same time, you have to also think about people who are probably going to lose money here. So it's not something to kind of, obviously be excited about or, if anything, this brings the market, everybody, brings everybody down in a lot of ways. Obviously there's going to be more, regulations and, just getting licenses, for all kinds of things crypto related is going to become even much more difficult to do. We're already in the bear market, and now you have this happening on top of that. Oh my gosh, it's massive. But hey, that's why we're here. The industry is so fun, but so crazy as well.
This is the definition. Real quick, Matt. This is the definition of when people say that crypto is a roller coaster ride. Okay, we were going up towards the hill slowly. We'd already gone down. We'd already gone down a couple of months ago. And, sometimes when you're on a roller coaster, you can either think of going down that hill as really fun or really terrifying. Most people, I think, if you looked at the market here, have found this to be incredibly terrifying. And the way that you kind of know that an event is significant in crypto is if the price of Bitcoin goes down. Right. And when it goes down as fast as it did, significantly as it did, because Bitcoin is literally the foundation of the entire market, you should be paying attention to this. Now, I wanted to put an outlier out here that we are not here to make fun of Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX, anything like that. We're just here to talk about a factual event that happened, is continuing to happen, and was so significant that it has caused essentially chaos and havoc in the markets. It touches almost everything. I was trying to find good analogies for the show about what this is like. Matt, I'm still waiting for that sports analogy. It's not like the Yankees going out of business, and it's not like Coca-Cola going out of business, but it's like something else going out of business.
Well, it's basically a team got contracted. In sports, we've seen, not in the last decade, 30 years or so, even going back 40 years, we haven't seen contraction in major four American sports in a half century, which means the team just no longer exists. It's gone. It's gone the way of the Dodo or the California Golden Seals, which was an NHL franchise that was contracted in the 1970s. This brings to mind the, Black Friday in the 1980s, when the lack of regulation in the American, in the American financial system completely caused the near crash of the stock market, and was a huge problem. It's not 1929. It's not to that level, but it is a real punch to the gut for those who believe in decentralized finance, who believe in Web3, who believe in the purity of the platform, because this is something that I think might have been bound to happen. And there's a lot going on here to where, as Kelechi said, people are going to lose money on this. Not just rich people like Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen who had money in FTX, but, regular investors, people like us who, guys like Kelechi and Nathan who understand the market and understand where they're going and would use FTX as a service, or may even have the FTX token. But this really causes people who are just entering the market and may have seen an FTX commercial in the Super Bowl. We were talking about the Larry David commercial before the start of the show. People who got in on the crypto wave in the last 12 months and have been a part of it and used FTX as a service. Tom Brady was in FTX commercials promoting the service for months. I think we even had a few of those. We had a ton of those commercials the last football season. I think even going back to 2020 when he went to Tampa initially. So FTX is, as a platform falling, is akin to Bear Stearns and what we saw in the banking and housing crisis in 2008. But there's no FDIC. They're not too big to fail. They're a service that has completely, marketed themselves out of, they spent themselves out of business.
It is a truly crazy situation because FTX is one of those exchanges that, like we talked about, they had all these celebrity endorsements: Tom Brady, Steph Curry, Larry David was in their commercials. They were acquiring companies like no other. Sam Bankman-Fried, he's a year younger than me. He's approximately 30 years old. He was worth $16 billion or something like that. He had the money to spend, money to burn. People said that he was a genius, things like that. This is the reason why this is so significant and why it's so interesting, is because you just couldn't have really predicted and put down the bets that this was going to happen for such a prominent exchange. But Kelechi, I'm wondering, since you've read a little bit more about this than I have, but I can explain it if you want to. I want us to give 1 or 2 minutes about the background about how this actually happened. I don't think that people know how FTX kind of became insolvent, and it's just simply because they really had this imbalance in their portfolio, which then was, I don't want to say exploited, it was noticed by other people who then used the market essentially against FTX. But Kelechi, do you have any more insight on that you want to explain?
I mean, just on the surface level, like looking at what was going on Twitter, just the fact that CZ, they were pretty much liquidating a huge a portion of their FTT holdings. I think it was like 580 million. That is a significant amount of basically dumping of a token, so to speak. And when you're not using OTC deals, that can really make the price affect the price of FTT, which causes this I guess, domino effect of things just, going wrong from there. You have, first of all, you have people like, okay, this is happening. Why is he selling all his FTT, holdings? That would lead to other, like, basically panic. Like when you start to hear rumors about something, everybody starts to like panic and they get the money out. And once people start withdrawing funds, in an exchange, that starts like cause all kind of problems. For example, there could be a lot of I guess platforms or companies out there that uses FTT as a kind of a collateral, right, for loans and things like that. Once the price starts dropping significantly, it's going to lead to like margin calls. And when there's margin calls, you need to meet those margin calls, so you need to go sell your assets, which leads to everything just going down. Maybe you have Solana or Sol token and need to go sell that in order to like meet your obligations. The price of Solana goes down and everything just keeps going down. It's like this domino effect. And obviously when that happens, like FTX.com, they had to like pause withdrawals. So, that's, it just causes a lot of problems. And even when you look at other ecosystem tokens or, platforms within the Solana ecosystem, like maybe decentralized exchanges, DEXs, they rely on FTT, they rely on their tokens. So when it starts dropping significantly, it affects the liquidity pools, because people like, kind of exiting out the liquidity. So if that happens, then if you're holding a token in that DEX, now you cannot sell because everybody's taking out the liquidity. So liquidity providers are taking out their liquidity. So it's just going to cause a lot of problems. So that's why this is a pretty crazy problem.
Yes, it is. It's not the greatest time to learn about liquidity, especially if you had an FTX account or something like that. And usually liquidity is one of those fancy financial words that nobody really ever worries about, because in most developed markets, there's sufficient liquidity to move a billion, sometimes even trillions of dollars.
Right.
But to your point here, Kelechi, this whole thing is kind of backstopped by just a little background here. FTX had a token. They had their own exchange token called FTT token. Most exchanges have their own sort of token. It gives trading discounts. It's a easy way for the exchange to make orders, to fill orders without having to use outside blockchains, which require gas fees and would require all that sort of stuff. And it turned out that CoinDesk had done this audit of FTX and their holding company, which was called Alameda Research, or is called Alameda Research, that they had a significant amount of FTT token as their collateral, which is not a good thing, because when you're talking about collateral, you want things that are not just valuable to you, right? So you want things that are valuable to society or the world as a whole. So if you're an individual and you're holding, let's just say, baseball cards, right? They may be very valuable to you, but the broader market may not see that they're as valuable, or you may have a limited market which you can sell them. That's much different than owning gold, real estate, stocks, things like that as collateral that have a more broad and universal appeal. So unfortunately, FTX got into this situation where a lot of their portfolio, too much, the percentages differ depending on who you talk to, was comprised of FTT token. And CZ of Binance saw that and decided that he didn't like the risk associated with it, and he liquidated this FTT token. And as you have so aptly explained, Kelechi, once one domino goes, because things were set up incorrectly, it was just a matter of time before 8 days later, FTX seemingly is no more. And the reason why this is a huge issue is what I want to kind of talk about here with Matt and you, Kelechi. People don't know how many tentacles FTX had. We kind of just assume that maybe FTX was this foundational building block in the crypto market, and that it was always just going to be there. Well, that's great when it is there, but now that it's not there, we see what has happened. Not to throw some shade on Solana here. People know that I'm not a huge fan of Solana, but FTX was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, VC funders of Solana. And so Solana, which, you know, I've talked about, I already has problems. Now they've got less VC funding there to go around. And you were talking about, Kelechi, how there's been a mass migration from Solana to Cardano NFTs. Little hooray there. We've talked about that before, but that a lot of the collections have gone down, and who knows, the network may have problems, because when a blockchain relies on VC funding and that VC funding is no longer there, it's just like anything else. There's less resources to go around. Maybe things don't get fixed. Maybe there's an exploit. I certainly don't wish them any harm, but Solana is in a tough spot right now. Tell me about that before we can go on to the sports and the celebrities that were affected. That's a cautionary tale.
I mean, yeah, just a good thing to clarify. I mean, according to reports, you know, FTX.com is the one that got affected with all this. Like FTX.US is still, you know, fully operational and everything, you know, for now. I mean, from reports, everything is seemingly going well. But yeah, FTX.com is kind of the main, I guess, entity that got affected the most here. But I mean, what else can I say? It's a very, very, you know, crazy situation, you know.
Well, I mean, did you know that FTX was a major funder of Solana? Because I actually did not know that.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that. I bet you a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, they have a lot of, you know, Sam Bankman-Fried, you know, has a lot of, I guess, influence over the Solana, you know, protocol, blockchain as a whole. So anything happening to him or the companies that he's involved with definitely will affect, you know, Solana as a as a blockchain, and of course the ecosystems of things that are built in Solana as well, because everything is also tied to the FTT token and the SOL token. So yeah, you know, this is going to affect a lot of things. Like most developers now will be like, you know, do I really want to be here? Like with all this stuff happening, you know, prior to all this, it was, you know, the network going down. And again, this is not to throw shade on Solana or you know, FTX or anything. We're just stating facts. You know, we're not saying anything that is like, you know, we're making things up. It's just that, you know, prior to this, it was the network issues, and now you have this happening again. You know, at some points, you might want to start like, you know, what's going on here. So not a good time, you know, for, you know, Solana and, you know, people who are very like exposed to the FTX or Solana ecosystem.
Absolutely, Kelechi. And I know that you were talking about that FTX, you know, .com, which is the international conglomerate of FTX, was mostly the one affected. But you know, I'm reading updates here right now that FTX.US is saying, hey guys, we might pause withdrawals. You probably want to close out your positions and do that. So it's just unfortunate. It doesn't look like it's going well for FTX. I really want this episode to be a cautionary tale of even the established players can fall. People make mistakes. Please do your due diligence. It's always about education, not taking on too much risk, and being comfortable with the projects that you're associating with. Matt, I definitely want to talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady, through no fault of his own, has gotten wrecked in this deal, along with Steph Curry. And they, not just because they endorse it, right? So it's one thing that their reputations might kind of go down. That could happen for any number of reasons. It doesn't have to depend on crypto or any other industry. My understanding, tell me if I'm wrong on this, Matt, because you know a little bit more about it. Steph Curry and Tom Brady invested significant sums of their wealth in FTX through stock ownership and other sorts of deals. And now that's gone essentially to zero.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, Tom Brady, Gisele Bündchen, Steph Curry, and others have got equity stakes or shares in FTX, investing tens of millions of dollars. I believe there was $100 million potentially invested by Brady and Bündchen. We'll have more info on that in the show notes below. But wow. Nathan, that number sounded like it hurted you. It hurt you.
That's crazy, man. Crazy.
What I'll keep coming back to. And once again, another disclaimer, not trying to make fun of Sam Bankman-Fried, not trying to make this a light situation. It was, Matt, you said that you thought that some event like this would happen in the crypto markets. Yeah. I agree with you. It's kind of the nature of these semi-regulated to basically unregulated markets. It's par for the course. I just did not think that it was going to be FTX. I could have pointed out a couple of other players, which I won't do, but I could have pointed out a couple of things. I said, oh yeah, they might collapse. They might do whatever. This is just so out of left field for me that
I think caught everybody by surprise. But at some point, this was going to happen with a major player. We look at how the entire market has the year-over-year downturn is startling. If this was any other financial market, people would say stay away from this space. But this is and much like a bunch of other markets, it's a very stubborn space. There's a lot of persistence. There's a lot of battling back. And the resiliency of the market during good times is commendable. And there's so many great things. But at some point, I think the conversation of how do we ensure this never happens again has to come up. Because for some people, it was small investments. No matter how much money Brady and Bunch, they're good. They're financially set for life. Tom Brady's Fox TV deal will make more money than me dead and alive 15 times. So you have to worry about the people who took big risks and couldn't afford to. The person who's just out of college, the person that's, trying to work in the markets or become day traders. There's no FDIC, there's no SEC regulation, there's no protections, there's no consumer protections. And that to me is the most worrying part of all of this, is that thousands of lives, jobs, the ripple effect of what happens when the bottom falls out on these exchanges is startling to me. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that this entire industry has yet to answer for the crypto skeptics. This is the biggest I told you so moment for every person in your life who calls crypto stupid, who calls crypto dumb. There's a Twitter account, Crypto Bros Taking L's, and there's some funny stuff on there. But this is a huge L for the industry. But the actual investors are the ones that I'm worried about. Sam Bankman-Fried will end up at some point making millions of dollars off of this or being able to tell his story. There'll be a Fire Fest or some sort of weird Bernie Madoff-esque documentary about this 5-10 years, even sooner down the line. So my worry is about the people whose livelihoods have been nearly knocked out because of whatever happened to completely gut the market. Whether it was investors wigging out because that FTT token was huge base of collateral, or Solana falling apart, or just the market in general, or any number of things. Like and not to use a wrestling analogy, but I feel like the story is apt. In the 1980s, Jim Crockett Promotions, based out of North Carolina, began to compete with Vince McMahon's WWF. They started in the mid 1980s. Both sides started to escalate for a war. It got really hot and heavy in 1986 and 87. In 1988, Jim Crockett's accountant couldn't keep up. It was a small family-run operation out of an old gas station in Charlotte, North Carolina. At some point, the accountant, who was just your normal, regular family accountant, ran through the numbers because they were going to try to buy another plane. And they were like, oh, God, we ran out of money, because they finally caught up to the bank books. They finally were able to balance the checkbook. And they realized, we're fucked. And that's how they ended up being sold to TBS and creating all that other stuff. Don't need to go down that road. But this feels like that to me. This feels exactly like that kind of situation where they thought they had the money. They thought they were going to get the revenue and the income in to satiate whatever it is they wanted to do. all of the spots, the FTX Arena deal in Miami, which used to be in the American Airlines Arena. I'm a frequent listener of the Dan Le Batard show with Stugat, so I know about Miami, and Miami's trying to become a crypto hub with Miami Coin. That has failed magnificently. If you're a crypto true believer and you feel that the market could withstand everything, this may have to be a come to Jesus moment. This week in the United States, we have come to realize and recognize a lot with our electorate. And we won't get into the politics of it all, but we were expecting one thing, and we're getting something different. This is what I think that is for the market right now. FTX getting wiped out in less than 10 days is going to be a huge fracture point for the community. And I think that serious conversations among the major players in the space are going to have to be had, and people are going to have to realize we gotta stop this now for every possible reason. But the most important one is so the people who invest and believe in these ideas don't get sent out into the cold and and metaverses become Hoovervilles ostensibly.
Metaverses being Hoovervilles is an incredibly fascinating tangent that we will not go down. It's almost sad that you brought that up as the last thing. The wrestling analogy is very interesting, Matt, because I think that is probably an apt analogy to where, we can't speculate on what Sam Bankman-Fried's intentions were. We don't know them. I don't want to make any allegations or things like that. It seems to me, my personal opinion, like he took just too much risk. He thought that he could deal with it. The economic climate just around the world has been crazy. It's been up and down, just like the crypto markets. The winds did not favor him. And now we have ended up with this. And the contagion risk doesn't just go to the celebrities and the, at the sports arenas and things like that. We haven't even touched on all the stuff that FTX interacted with, which was esports, gaming, NFTs, the stuff that it owned. It sponsored esports teams, stuff like that. That stuff has disappeared. It's just bananas to me. And I completely agree with you, Matt, that this will be a moment in crypto history that people will remember. I want to congratulate you, Matt. Kelechi, you don't need this because you're already a crypto OG. You've been grandfathered in through all the NFT stuff and having your own project and things like that. But when you live through a hugely negative event like this in the crypto markets, and you come out the other side and you have a true perspective of what can really change in this market. It's not a little 8% dip like you see in the stock market or things like that. It's an 80%. It's an 80% drawdown, or one of the major players goes out of business. Matt, I'd like to congratulate you on living through this. I'm now awarding you the honorary member of Crypto OG. We're going to give you a little clap right here. Of course, I've been a crypto OG since 2017. I remember when Bitcoin was $300 and I didn't buy it. Why? But this is going to be one of those things where, I have family members and friends who they just think crypto is totally a scam. I don't fault them for it. It's easy to think like that. And I don't try and convince anybody of my opinions or things like that. But I could see now how, Bitcoin didn't change. Cardano didn't change. Monero didn't change. These blockchains are all the same. But if you invested in those blockchains and they were on FTX, your life has changed. You're now at zero. Yeah. You got nothing. So that's the major thing, is that it's the custodians and the advocates of these blockchains, that one of the major ones, one of the ones that we thought that we could trust, you couldn't. And so it in a way, it's kind of good because it makes you want to go back to the foundational projects and self-custody and do things a little bit differently. But of course it's bad because it's going to drive people away from crypto. It's going to make people scared. There's going to be a lot of FUD thrown around, which is not true, about Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these other projects. And there's some stuff coming out now about Sam Bankman-Fried maybe, colluding with politicians to make sure that he had a monopoly or things like that. We don't know. There's so much stuff developing here, and I only want to point towards stuff that we absolutely know is true, that it is just ginormous. But, Matt and Kelechi specifically, with the NFT space that FTX was cultivating and the esports space, they were really one of the major players on it, because a lot of the exchanges don't like to touch that stuff. They still think it's too fringe, especially esports. Now that's gone. How do you think that is going to set back sort of the stuff that we've been looking at or talking about? Kelechi, I want to know this from you first.
I mean, it's going to be one of those things where people like, oh yeah, I told you so, yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's just going to be the instant reaction, right? But at the end of the day, like it doesn't change the underlying like promise, the underlying technology. Again, this is something that happened to one exchange where that, looking at everything that happened, it's just based on like some like decisions that were made that wasn't supposed to be made. Like risks were taken that were not supposed to be taken, but that doesn't like negate the fact that the blockchain and in this case like maybe NFTs and esports, it's all of a sudden, oh, it's all a scam. Like I feel like that's too that's not the right way to think about it. Is to say, okay, definitely the industry is going to take a huge L out of this. It's going to bring a lot of questions about regulation and stuff like that, maybe rightfully so. But yeah, again, this is definitely going to be one of those things where it's going to, set us back, people who are currently like building in this space, but also could also bring attention, overall, attention to the space as well. That's the funny thing about this whole thing. More people are now going to understand, like find out about what FTX is, like it's a crypto exchange. There's this saying that, I forget how you put it, like all publicity is good publicity, something like that. It's going to lead to more people like, paying attention, maybe in a negative way, but at least like, knowing what happened. But when it comes to things like, gaming and esports, I don't think, obviously FTX, they were big in it, but they were not the only players. If anything, this opens up the door for other people to come in, to, fill that void. And I think that's kind of the approach that people are going to take, especially people who are really invested in the technology for the right reasons. Like you were not invested in technology because of FTX, right? You were invested in it because of the underlying benefits that it, provides. So all the players, whether that be exchanges, whether that be like, like VC firms or whatever, that are looking to, esports and gaming, that's still going to happen, And again, overall, I feel like this whole thing from the bear markets to all this stuff happening right now, how I see it is actually for the people actually building and taking their time to do stuff, not taking shortcuts, not cutting corners. I think this is a big win for them, because it shows the fact that if you take your time, you do things, you're not taking too much risk, you just, just focusing on building something good, and you're not rushing to quote unquote break things. It's almost like the hare and like what's that story?
Tortoise and the hare.
Yeah, tortoise and hare. Yeah, analogy.
Oh.
Like that's kind of how it is. Like if you're moving too fast, you're gonna burn out, and all of a sudden, you're not gonna be the winner at the end. So just some lessons to take out of this.
Which is exactly what I've been trying to tell people about Matt Graham Cracker Coin and our liquidity pool. Okay. I bring this up every couple of episodes. We're building people. The liquidity pool is $250. If it was a rug pull, do you think I'd still be talking about it? We're here, we're building. And I wanted to make a special announcement here that we are in talks with Nabisco. Okay. Matt Graham Cracker Coin is in talks with Nabisco. And by in talks with Nabisco, I don't mean that I've just been calling Nabisco customer service and asking for the CEO and getting hung up on, okay? I mean much more than that. Just because you can't exit the liquidity pool, which once again, $250, pretty solid, buys a lot of mac and cheese. We are building, okay? And that's what bear markets are for. They're for building. Stop blowing up the Telegram saying Matt Graham Cracker Coin is a scam. It's not. All right, everybody.
I don't like that my name is on the coin that everyone thinks is a rug pull.
I'm
a wrestling promoter, and already people think I'm Carnival People. So
glad that you brought this up, Matt, because people have asked me that. They say, why don't you just call it Graham Cracker Coin? Well, what's this Matt guy got to do with it? Well, maybe you should go and look on CoinMarketCap, because Graham Cracker Coin, that's a scam. It wasn't real. All right.
Yeah, the real one is Matt Graham Cracker Coin.
So we're Oreo and they're Hydrox. That's basically what this is. This, to use another cookie analogy.
Let's use a video game analogy too. You know how you could tell the Nintendo genuine products by had that little holographic stamp seal on the Nintendo products?
Yes.
Matt's smiling cartoon face holding up a graham cracker with the bite out of it is the way you know that our projects are genuine and on the blockchain. And if it's not, it's a freaking scam, people, okay? That's what this whole episode is about, right? We're just trying to have a little bit of fun. The world is chaotic. You can go outside. The sun is still shining here in Colorado. It's a beautiful day. FTX may have collapsed, but you don't have to. Whether you lost money in FTX, whether you never used FTX, this is a cautionary tale of just because somebody says that a person is amazing or it's endorsed by celebrities or, oh, look, they have all this stuff, doesn't mean that things can't go wrong and that things can't flip on a dime. This is one of the most insane, fastest downfalls I think I've seen in my lifetime, and especially in crypto. And it remains to be seen what Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX will be made out of all this. We don't know whether it was just taking too much risk. We don't know whether crimes were committed. We don't know anything about that. As it develops, we'll keep talking about it. Actually, next week, we're going to have Nighthawk on the show from the Cardano ecosystem. And while I don't really want to talk about Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX with her, because I'm much more interested in Cardano and what she's doing, because she's a wild gal doing all sorts of stuff, we'll have developments by then. And this is just one of those things where I'd love to know how, if at all, it affected Cardano, Kelechi. I just wanted to assure people really quickly that Matt Graham Cracker Coin did not have any exposure to FTX. We are self-custodying that. I've actually well, you laugh, Kelechi. I'll let you comment here in a second, but people reached out to El Salvador, the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, because they have significant Bitcoin holdings. They've made Bitcoin legal tender there. It's a treasury reserve asset. And they were concerned that they said, oh, are you guys keeping it in FTX? And they said, no, we're self-custodying it. We're all good. It's a legitimate concern because if you're a country and you have some sort of collateralized asset, it doesn't matter whether it's gold, real estate, whatever, and you don't control it. If you don't control an asset, you don't have the asset, I'm sorry to say. So they're fortunate in that one of the first countries on earth to use Bitcoin as a treasury asset and kind of base their currency and other stuff on it, they didn't have any exposure to it. So they're still all good. I don't know whether Michael Saylor had any in FTX. That'll be an interesting thing to come out. I think he's a guy, but I hope not. I'm hoping for as little downfall as possible. But Kelechi,
I was just gonna say, like, most of these huge players in the space, whether that be a whole country or a president or a huge, I guess, like Michael Saylor, they don't just leave the crypto in an exchange. They self custody their assets, I think, because there's a lot of risk, because like I don't know if I can speak for all exchanges or go down deep into the detail, but if you have your crypto in an exchange, you don't have that crypto because they could use it for all kinds of stuff on the back end, lending and all that stuff. So I guess another thing to point out here is always learn how to protect yourself, right? Self custody as much as you can. Because at the end of the day, you want to protect your assets, like your money, so I guess that's a lesson there, to learn from all this. And just going back to talking about people who endorse it, I know that there was a lot of I guess influencers that endorsed FTX. Obviously, nobody saw this coming, right? Um, but it's just, again, it's another, like you said, like a lot of people will be affected by this. Like those people who endorsed FTX, they had affiliate links promoting it, doing all that stuff. They exposed their audience to FTX. You know, so that's another that's another situation there. Again, it's just a huge I guess like loss for the industry as a whole. But I mean, we're gonna bounce back from this. It's not the end of crypto or blockchain. It might bring some regulations and stuff, but yeah, it's crazy.
No, not the end at all. And something interesting that I was thinking about too is that we mentioned all the celebrities: Steph Curry, Tom Brady. Larry David is an interesting one because Larry David, I do not get the sense, is super into technology or technologically literate. However, this whole thing and him being a part of it actually seems like a great plot for a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. So, I'm hoping that there's a positive win that comes out of that. Like Matt mentioned, Tom Brady and Steph Curry, I'm sorry that they lost money, but they'll be fine. I'm wondering if this will really propel them. I'm thinking of like Steph Curry and Tom Brady, how they run like youth football and sports camps and stuff like that, and how they're always trying to like educate young people. I wonder if this will be a big wake up call to them that like, hey, we need to. I'm thinking about like when Jay-Z and Jack Dorsey were starting the Bitcoin Academy in New York City, about if this is going to be a big wake up to them that like, hey, even Tom Brady and Steph Curry can be victims of essentially malfeasance or the market conditions going bad. So we really want to get young people to not do this and do their due diligence. So there's a silver lining to most negatives if you can look at it, and there can still be some positive stuff that comes out of this. But it has been a wild ride and a wild roller coaster. I'm trying to think about if I've left anything out, gentlemen.
And even if we did, I think by this time next week, and if we have to do an emergency podcast about this, I think the more the story grows. We're in the real early stages of this, so I don't think over the next few days what we have now is going to be the full story. There's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out, especially after the holiday weekend. But I think this has been a real interesting look at three unique opinions about what is the biggest story in our industry right now.
Yeah, definitely big. And when it even comes to the NFT side of things, I think a lot of like blue chip like NFTs in the Solana ecosystem got affected as well. So it's it's something, like you said, there's going to be more developments as time goes on, but definitely interesting time in the space.
Yeah, I think the last thing I wanted to add was another fact that I had looked at, which was that when FTX was thinking that it was going to go under, but it might still be saved, they asked CZ, who's the CEO of Binance, to come and essentially buy them out, right? Help with their liquidity crisis, things like that. And according to reports that I've read and what CZ has said publicly, he did not want to buy them because their books looked so bad. So if you were kind of thinking that when we explain the FTT token, you think, it's not so bad, they had other collateral, they could do this. I can only tell you what I've read in the news and other reports. Try not to make accusations or say stuff that isn't true. But when you're a big crypto company and another crypto company offers to buy you and then they back out of buying you, I just say that maybe that's a bad sign of stuff that's going on here. But I agree with you here, Matt. We don't by the time this comes out, even probably it might be outdated, but we had to do it. We're trying to stay on top of the news and talk about stuff that's relevant, right? I try to only make podcasts that I myself would listen to that I find informative, funny, interesting, and that relate to crypto. So hope that helps. And unless we have anything left to discuss, gentlemen, I think we can round it up there.
Yeah, it's definitely a good episode.
Yeah, this has been an awesome edition of the BitMart BrainTrust. Thank you, Kelechi Ibe and Nathan Simone. Be sure to follow them on Twitter. You can find that information in the show notes below. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the NFT 101 podcast page and also on our YouTube channel. If you're watching the video version of this, be sure to ring the notification bell, click the subscribe button, and also give us a thumbs up and drop a comment. Let us know what you think. And folks, we will be back next week. We've got a guest next week. For more information on everything BitMart, head on over to bitmart.com. And now the part that we all love, Nathan, giving you all the legal mumbo jumbo.
Hello to everybody out there in crypto land. Did you enjoy that conversation? I know that I did. It's always interesting to learn more about crypto projects, NFTs, and what is going on in this very unique industry. But now we've got to get some legal stuff out of the way, all right? It's just the way that it is. So I wanted to let you know that all opinions and actions expressed and undertaken by the hosts and guests are individual opinions and actions and do not reflect the views and actions of BitMart. BitMart does not guarantee the accuracy, applicability, reliability, integrity, performance, completeness, or appropriateness of this content. The value of digital currencies can go up or down, and there can be a substantial risk in buying, selling, holding, or investing in digital currencies. You should carefully consider whether trading or holding digital currencies is suitable for you based on your personal investment objectives, financial circumstances, and risk tolerance. BitMart does not provide investment, tax, or legal advice. Use of BitMart services is entirely at your own risk.